Welcome back. We're at the Round Valley Bonsai Nursery here in Lindsay, California, visiting Ed Clark.
To my nursery, my project that keeps me really busy. I've been interested in bonsai since I was 15, and but it's been real intermittent. When I retired, I got real serious and ended up with a nursery with probably 10,000-15,000 trees here. It keeps me busy and allows me to stay married because I'm not underfoot all the time. And the nice thing is we've met a lot of really wonderful people in the bonsai community, especially in Southern California. And we're gradually enjoying it, learning from all those guys down there. We like to go to the shows and meet people. That's Linda's favorite part. But we grow pines and junipers and some Japanese maples. I spent close to 40 years grafting maples for the commercial nursery trade and a few other things that I sold all out, and then realized I should have kept a bunch of maples because I was a little bored with maples, and I went straight to conifers. We grow the, like I said, the twisted junipers, the mostly twisted black pines, and now we're growing a lot of maples again. So Tom is one of the guys that bought me out of the ones that I had left that were big size, and we're currently moving into internet sales. But since I'm technically illiterate, it's been quite a struggle. We're having a good time, and we want to have a good time with you guys. Anybody wants to come, just give us a call. And if we're anywhere around or our schedule's flexible, we'll be here. We also fish a lot in the summertime, so we like to be gone as often as we can get away. But everybody's welcome as long as we don't, during the virus time, have too many people at one time. And we stay outside, so we figure we're pretty safe. And I'm glad to have Tom and come up and do this little video and answer some questions for you.
You're going to show a couple of your trees that you have out here, Ed. Some of your display trees, I call them.
Well, I ran into this tree in Oregon a couple of years ago, and it's quickly turning into one of my favorite trees. It was a tree grown, it was 7 feet tall. It was grown to be over in a koi garden, lean out over the pond. And I cut it off to the first 2 branches and made it a cascade. So probably my close to favorite tree, cost me the least out here. This cork pine is 30 years old, and so is that juniper with the roots on the rock.
Were they grown by you by hand?
Yeah, they were grown from seedlings and cuttings.
Wow.
And I've got some root over rock tridents that I really love that have been around the same amount of time. About 8 or 10 plants is all that survived the intervening years when I was totally ignoring them. So I'm glad to have them.
Did you grow them? So did you get stock, or were you interested in the cork pines? Because cork pines are really unusual.
Well, when I was in my 20s, I spent some time in LA when I could, bugging the people that had bonsai nurseries. And a fellow, I can't remember his name now, had several really big ones. And I bugged him 2 or 3 times till he finally got tired of me and handed me a branch. And I hustled it home and grafted a few trees. And I only got 2 from that era left. And but I've been grafting them here in the last 7 or 8 years.
Is that the 3?
Yeah,
the 3?
3-wing one. It's called Jinseki. And I guess Mas Ishii had that one too. Gary's got a few. It's really slow to cork, and I've got 2 varieties that have come from the East Coast that cork in the 2nd year, and I'm busy trying to build those up, and they're really nice. The problem with Jinseki is it doesn't bud heavily, so you got to work really hard to get any ramification.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. California juniper came from David Nui, and it just had one great big branch. And one day he came here and showed me how we turned it into a more compact thing, and it's pretty close to ready to put in a little better pot. You don't have to always spend a lot of money. I found this in in the yard of the house my son bought, and it's never seen a wire, and it has all that movement. It's a standard procumbens,
Yeah.
and it looks like somebody wired it up for bonsai.
So it was a
Yardadori, yeah. It cost me my effort to get it out of the ground. And it's a pretty nice tree. David Reed was willing to buy it from me. So that makes it better, right?
Well, there's a lot of movement on it, surprisingly.
And it's totally natural. I got this tree from Tom Vaughn about 3 years ago, and it just had a few basic branches and the really nice trunks he developed. So I was really greedy to get that. I'm working on finishing that one now.
Oh, before you leave, let's talk about the unorthodox. Let me get this film so I can. All right, you have to talk about the really unusual way of wiring. This is not really wiring. This is almost like a tie down method. You want to talk?
Exactly what it is.
Do you want to talk? Get close to the tree.
It's quick. It's easy, and it won't cut the branches. It's cotton string, and I won't have to remember to take the wire off of it.
Oh, so instead of tying down to the pot, you're tying down to the stand itself because it's wood.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it's just cotton string.
Just cotton tomato twine, just pull them down. That's all it needed right now. Someone will have to pull down again, like this one, but
you'll never get wire scar on it that way.
No, and it's not hit hard enough to leave a mark in the branch.
That's kind of cool. I usually tie it straight to the pot because you wire on the pot and then you tie it to the pot.
Screws are a lot easier.
When I saw that one, that's pretty brilliant. I like that one.
Well, I came across a guy in Sacramento who used jute twine.
Jute twine.
And he had a big bonsai nursery. It's since out of business, but he pulled all the branches down with jute twine because it's bigger, fatter, and a little softer.
So I noticed you go on vacation. I know you like your fishing. I did notice that you don't hand water.
I don't hand water a single thing.
This is interesting because a lot of nurseries we've been to, they're all the first thing they said, we hand water everything. You're one of the rare people that actually has a system. You want to talk about your system really quick?
Well, that's an outgrowth of 40 plus years in the nursery business. I only have so many hours in the day, so I have to choose what I do. Do I weed? Do I water? Or do I work on trees? So I use pre-emergent on most of the weeds. I use the clocks to water. I have 27 different valves on the property. I could water all day by hand and not ever finish. So that's all I would end up doing.
What is your time? Is it 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about once per day, twice per day?
Most of the year, once a day. When the weather gets pretty hot, we'll go to twice a day. When it gets scorching hot, getting above 100, we'll hit it 3 times a day. But that's usually only for a week or 2.
Okay.
But I use a really well-drained mix. It's large amount is black lava, so it's almost impossible to overwater because it'll run on through, and yet black lava will retain a certain amount of moisture for a long time before it dries out. So it's a pretty safe mix to use for automatic watering. If it's a real water-loving tree like a maple, you might have to throw in some akadama. But I've got one of the best maples I own over there on the stand. It's also about 25 years old, and it's in straight black lava. 3rd year in that pot, and loves it.
But your water's different from our city water. Our city water really alkaline, really.
Yeah. We get snow runoff water here.
So it gets benefit of good water.
The bad part about it is it's full of weeds.
No.
It comes in an open ditch, so I end up fighting a weed problem. But I'd rather have that than alkali water.
Yeah.
So.
That's a big help, I think, from city water.
Just went to Oregon and ran into one of my bonsai friends and bought this tree from him. It's a Scotch Pine, and I was tickled to get that.
Why is that?
Well, it's an old tree with a great base. It's kind of covered right now, but the tree was initially grown by Telperian Farms and worked on by Mike Hagedorn and Ryan Neal, and the lady decided she didn't want it anymore for some reason or another. I didn't ask her why, I just bought it.
What's the difference between a pitch pine and a Scots pine? What, like, are there any?
Pine?
Or
A pitch pine is native to the U.S. And has real long needles.
okay, and
The Scotch pine typically has fairly short needles, and it's native to places that have fairly cold winters.
Okay.
Northern Europe mostly.
and difference between that and a black pine, what everybody's kind of common to it.
The Scotch pine is a single flush pine.
Okay.
When you prune a black pine, it'll put out a
Twice.
whole bunch of new buds. Scots pine will only bud up once it gets a little mature. It'll only bud up for you once a year in the spring.
Okay, so that's why it's a
So in
single
order
flush.
to contain it, you have to cut the candles to keep it to get any ramification. Because if you cut it short, then the next year, thing is, it buds real heavy in the spring. So if you cut it short, you'll get a lot of buds. When you're pruning trees, it's always a teeter-totter thing. If the tree is strong enough to lift 100 pounds and it only has 2 buds to push, they'll be huge. If it's strong enough to lift 100 pounds and it has 100 buds to push, they'll be small. So you just have to keep that in mind when you're pruning. How strong is your tree, and how hard can you prune it?
Let's talk about your maple over there.
Which maple?
One in the
Oh,
front.
yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
gotta talk about that maple. It's one of your, I call it heritage tree. You know, you.
Yeah, this. Oh, this is Kaiohimi, and was grown as a retail nursery tree for the yard. I had at one time 300 of them. I've only got a couple left. This particular variety has no apical dominance, so it doesn't really want to go up. It wants to go out. And so like an azalea, it pushes almost all of its energy down. And so you get these massive trunks and great nabari almost without effort.
And you had this tree about 30 years, you said.
Yeah, I think 25. I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
It was a seedling, right?
it was a graft.
It was a graft.
Yeah, I grew the seedlings and then I grafted grafts right in here. Thing about this variety is you'll never see the graft ever. After a few years, they all go away. Grafts the tree is so vigorous, it even makes the roots grow better.
So how did you grow? I mean, if this was like a 5 gallon by 5 gallon at one
Right,
point,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this was in the can for about what 20 years? You may have.
Well, it was in a 1 gallon can for
Oh, 1
about
gallon.
10 years, but the problem that I had making bonsai out of them is all of them had 4 trunks. Because the way you cut them, they have 2 buds, and then you cut them again to make them bushy. So now you got 4 branches. So a lot of them look, too symmetrical. So you have to. By the time I got around to doing bonsai, I had to cut a big branch out and heal a scar to get down to 3. And so, but the thing about maples is don't worry about cutting them. Just cut the snot out of them and then feed them and grow them. Don't try to finish them right away, and you'll be rewarded with really nice trees.
Well, let's talk about your commercial end stuff here.
Well, we've got the better part of probably 3 acres or more of trees on benches or sitting on the ground. And we got maybe another half an acre or more of things actually in the ground. I fell for the thing that they grow in the ground is better. Then I realized due to the fact that I have black adobe ground, it's also a huge struggle to get them out. So I quit growing in the ground and I'm going to grow on the ground, which maybe we'll cover later. Same good benefit, a lot less work.
Let's go.
Okay, so you want to go out where there's
Yeah.
a lot of trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow,
So-
look at that. Oh, let's stick a
So in
pan.
this house we have, there's actually 5 houses here, but we have twisted black pine. The house where I initially started up filling with black pines, now there are black pines in several houses, but these are all twisted when they're real small. The really tall ones there were ones that were too small to graft, and now I've grown them up. They're working on bunjin, and they share the next house with both Kishu and a Toyogawa junipers, and the shohin are slightly bigger size that have all the movement wired into them. There's a couple benches here, but there's a couple of other benches in other houses, and I've got quite a bit of a Toyogawa, both in buckets that have pretty good caliper and in the ground. So we're gonna dig a whole bunch, probably 200 or 300 out of the ground this winter and pot them up while I have a little help. But this whole bench, except for a little on the end, is Kishu, and that whole bench there, except for a couple on this end, is a Toyogawa.
Let's get a close up of one of some of your junipers here.
Okay, these are younger junipers. We've got little ones like that, and we have some that are a little bigger, like this one.
Yeah, hold that up really quick. Oh, that's like a good twist on the bottom here.
Yeah. And we have some with even more dramatic twists in them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I get a big kick out of doing that, but junipers are really fun to work with. They're very forgiving, and if you mess one up, you just put it on the bench for a year or two and do it over again. So we've got, on that bench, we got beautyberry and some maples that are going to be either part of a grove or wired for individual trees. We'll put a little movement in them.
You guys have to come down to see the volume of trees that you can select from. A lot of people says, "Can you buy me something, bring it back down?" It's not the same. I think all the trees look very similar, but they all have the personality. They're all different. And if you have a chance to come up, you have to come up. I mean, at least once before you say, "Ed, pick a tree for me." It's not the same. It is. You spend easily 2-3 hours just looking before even buying a single item. I mean, this is almost like a field trip.
Yeah, I have some customers formerly that lived in Southern California have moved to the East Coast, and that's what they do. Send me a tree, Ed, and that's difficult because I like most of them, if not all of them. So thank goodness for camera phones. We can trade some pictures. But when they say show me some, I don't have time to show you some. Tell me kind of what you want, and I'll try to find some like that. But I could spend a month showing you trees, and I would maybe not get to what you want.
Yeah.
But we got some elms here, and some apricots, some ume there. I even have a few miniature roses we're monkeying around with for companion plants. I've got a variegated, it's not variegated now because it's in the shade, but I got a variegated willow from Japan that's pink, white, and
tricolor.
And green.
Oh, that's kind of
really
interesting.
striking. It's beautiful, and if you put it in the full sun. And on this bench, there are about 450 junipers twisted for Mame or Shohin size. So currently working with some custom potters to make me pots to start putting some in. They'll all be custom handmade pots. And we should start seeing those show up in a year and a half or 2 years. And then here we have some of our bigger pines. Almost all of these are grafted. A lot of them are Yatsubusa type pines, which means 7 buds, that they bud real heavy. The ones that aren't Yatsubusa are cork barks, which are a little hard to manipulate, but I like them. They're well worth the effort. These 3 benches are the next two or three generations of pines that are younger than the ones you just saw. And the tall ones in the back are all headed to be grown on the ground.
How do you upkeep with so many?
First of all, you don't hand water anything, right? Second of all, you use pre-emergent to keep up with the weeds. And other than that, you just put in 7, 8, 9 hours a day, 6 days a week, and sometimes more if it's an emergency. And that way I stay married. Linda doesn't have to shoo me away and get mad about me getting in her business. So
Well, it's as we go into one of our next episodes, which would be pre-bonsai stock selection. People understand time is currency. Time is currency because this is a lot of work that we're paying people for. So some people don't understand the concept yet, but I think the older you get, the more mature you get in this hobby, you're paying for time, a lot of effort too.
these black pines are just barely getting started on their road to being bonsai, and they're already 3.5 years old now. And it'll be another 3 years before they even start to look like a bonsai. And this bench is Scotch Pine, grown for a customer that wants to sell them on the internet. Well, he's not going to buy them all, but most of them. So that's just about this house, but we've got, you can see the trident maples in the ground through this shade house, and those are all going to be dug for bonsai. And then there's a couple of hundred junipers in the ground out there to be dug this winter, I hope.
I'm going to take a walk after we're done talking here, and I'll show the viewers what does it mean by a couple hundred. The number is going to like drive people insane here.
Well, there's an awful lot of people who like to buy bonsai, and if you only got 10, you'll find yourself sold out. And that's a lesson I've learned over 8 years. I started off with one bench, figured that'd be plenty. Now the whole nursery's full, just about.
Oh man, I remember when you had so many maples. It was a little candy store.
Yeah, well, I sold them all, and I didn't want to do maples anymore. I wanted to do bonsai, and I had done maples so long I wanted to do conifers, and that was kind of a big mistake. But these are all Victoria Gowan Kishu junipers. And then there's another block around the corner. And those are all, there's a crabapple or two in there, but those are all trident maples that will come out. Some of the bigger ones will come out of the ground this year. Every year I take a few out, leave the rest to develop.
Massive fields.
And there's way more tridents in the other end of the nursery, and some pomegranates in the ground. Actually, the pomegranates are on the ground.
All right, so I got you here. What's one or two tips you can talk about to new bonsai people out here? What's a couple lessons you can give them?
Well, first of all is enjoy yourself. Don't let anybody browbeat you into what a bonsai has to be. But secondly, it seems a contradiction. Find somebody who can teach you. You'll be happier if the results please you better. And there are a number of people more than willing to help you, especially in Southern California. And just a few lessons goes a long ways toward being happy with what you have. Some people get frustrated when it doesn't end up looking like a bonsai. They don't know what to do. They kind of give up. Find a club like Baikoen, or any of them really that I've been to. They have experienced people there that'll help you. And that's why it gets fun. You meet the people, you have a good time. There are people there that know more than I'll ever know, and I still take, I get a chance to talk to Lindsay or whoever down there knows what they're talking about. I listen. You know, I'm a good nurseryman. I'm just like you, though. I'm just a hobby bonsai guy.
So thanks a lot, Ed. I'll walk around, and if you guys want to come by, remember, you can talk to Ed, call him up, and then I'll leave the description below. So I'll talk to you guys all.